A sword has ended countless lives. Generals, rebels, traitors. But tonight, the sword is coming for the man who once held it. Inside the tent of the Lord, a warrior trembles. Not on a battlefield, not in armor, but at an altar. The Bible records this moment in 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 28 to 34. Joab fled to the tabernacle and took hold of the horns of the altar. This was Israel's commander, the man who murdered Abner, who arranged the death of Uriah, who struck down Absalom against the king's command. And outside the temple were the steady march and heavy approach of soldiers who had come to carry out a royal execution. He commanded armies. He decided who lived and who died. But now, he was the one waiting for judgment. How did David's most feared warrior end up clinging to an altar? Tonight, we uncover the rise and fall of Joab, the warrior who killed, betrayed, and was ultimately abandoned. If you love powerful, biblically grounded stories told with depth and truth, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who wants to understand the hidden figures of Scripture. Now, let's begin. Before Joab clung to the altar, before his name became a warning whispered across Israel, he was a boy born into a family of warriors. Joab was the son of Zeruiah, the sister of King David. His brothers, Abishai and Asahel, were fierce soldiers in their own right. And his uncle, David, the man anointed by God to rule Israel. The Bible records Joab's lineage in 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 16. The sons of Zeruiah, Abishai, Joab, and Asahel, three of David's mighty warriors. Joab grew up in a time of chaos. Israel was emerging from the shadow of Saul's reign. Tribes were restless. Alliances were fragile. Every day was a battle, not just with enemies outside, but with survival itself. He was fierce, yes, but he was also intelligent, calculating, and politically aware. Joab did not follow orders blindly. He studied men, read hearts, and acted decisively when others hesitated. The public and historical accounts of his life show a man who understood that loyalty to the king and loyalty to the kingdom were not always the same. In the wilderness, when David gathered his men, Joab was among the first to join him, not for love of the king alone, but because he saw the tides of power and the necessity of action. And yet, even in these early days, Joab's hand was stained with blood. 2 Samuel chapter 2 verses 18 to 23 tell of his brother Asahel pursuing Abner, Saul's commander, during battle, a chase that would end in death. This was Joab's first encounter with loss, vengeance, and the harsh reality of war. And so it began. The first blood Joab spilled would change everything. From a boy in the shadows of David's rise, he would become a man whose name alone commanded fear, and whose actions would shape the destiny of Israel itself. Before Joab became the hand of kings, the blood of his family marked his path. Abner, commander of Saul's army, a man of strategy, cunning, and authority, had faced Israel in countless battles. And in one fateful encounter, he met Asahel, Joab's brother. 2 Samuel 2 verses 18 to 23 recounts the chase. Asahel pursued Abner, turning neither to the right nor to the left. But Abner turned to him and struck him in the stomach with the butt of his spear, and he fell there and died beside his brothers. Asahel was young, impulsive, and relentless. Abner was seasoned, merciless, and alive to survival. Joab watched. He saw his brother fall, lifeless on the field. And in that moment, a vow formed in his heart. A vow that justice in Joab's eyes would be measured not by kings or law, but by the hands of the wronged. Years later, Abner, sensing the tide of power, defected to David. 2 Samuel 3 verses 6 to 21 tells us, Abner sent messengers to David, offering peace and pledging allegiance to the king. David, seeing the opportunity to unify Israel, welcomed him. He made treaties, offered gifts, and sought reconciliation. But Joab saw differently. He remembered Asahel. He remembered betrayal. And he remembered that the blood of his brother demanded payment. Quietly, Joab lured Abner aside, away from witnesses, away from negotiation. Then, swiftly he struck. A hidden blade. A stab to the stomach. Abner staggered. Blood spread across the ground of Hebron. 2 Samuel 3 verse 27 records. Joab went into the midst of the gate to speak with Abner, And he struck him in the stomach, and he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. David's grief and outrage were immediate and public. He tore his garments, cried before all Israel, and cursed Joab for this act. 2 Samuel 3 verse 29. And David said to all the people and to all Israel, I swear, my son shall not fall by the hand of anyone who avenges his blood. Yet Joab was not removed. He retained his position, his army, his influence. And in that moment, a dangerous truth became clear. Joab could act independently. Joab could decide justice without the king's command. Joab could bend loyalty, law, and order to his will. The soldiers of Israel saw it. The people whispered it. Even David understood it. Joab was more than a warrior. He was a force unto himself, loyal, yes, but lethal, uncompromising, and unbound. And as the blood of Abner dried on the streets of Hebron, one certainty remained. This would not be the last time Joab decided justice for himself. After the blood of Abner stained Hebron, Israel waited for stability. David was now king over Judah, and soon the entire nation would recognize him. But the city of Jerusalem remained in the hands of the Jebusites, a fortress that mocked every attempt to conquer it. From its walls, they sneered, even the blind and the lame can defend this place. 2 Samuel 5 verses 6 to 10 records the challenge. David said, Whoever strikes the Jebusites first shall become commander of the army. The city was more than stone and walls. It was the key to Israel's unification. The king offered a test, a prize, a statement of power. Joab, son of Zeruiah, saw opportunity. Where others hesitated, he acted. Where others feared, he climbed. 1 Chronicles 11 verse 6 recounts. Joab son of Zeruiah went up first and became the commander of the army. Under the cover of night, he found the hidden water shaft, damp and narrow. The stones pressed against his hands. The dark pressed against his face. Every step was silent. Every movement precise. And then, the gates of Jerusalem opened, not with negotiation, not with diplomacy, but through stealth, courage, and calculated aggression. The Jebusites were caught off guard. By morning, the city belonged to David. But the crown of honor, the permanent command of the army, was Joab's alone. For Israel, it was victory. For Joab, it was proof. Boldness, decisiveness, and action could claim both cities and influence. But as the dust settled and the banners of Israel waved over Jerusalem, a darker reality lingered. The first great reward of Joab's aggression had been earned. But the next command he would obey from the king would stain his soul forever. Uriah the Hittite was more than a soldier. A loyal warrior, a man of honor, devoted to his brothers in arms. And he had a wife, Bathsheba. 2 Samuel chapter 11 tells the story. David sent messengers and took her. She came to him, and he lay with her. Then she returned to her house. The king's desire was more than a lapse, it was an obsession. Bathsheba's beauty and innocence became the catalyst for a sin that would shake the nation. When David learned she was pregnant, fear and ambition collided. He called Uriah home from the battlefield, hoping the soldier would sleep with his wife and cover the crime. But Uriah, a man of integrity, would not indulge while his comrades slept in tents. He refused the comforts of home. David's solution was cold and calculated. He wrote a letter, delivered by the hand of Joab. 2 Samuel 11 verses 14 to 15. Then David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In the letter he wrote, Put Uriah in the forefront of the hardest battle, and then draw back from him, so that he may be struck and die. Joab read the orders carefully. He understood immediately what was at stake. Uriah's death would be a deliberate murder sanctioned by the king. And yet, Joab obeyed. He placed Uriah in the fiercest part of the siege. The enemy surrounded him. The battle raged. And as David intended, Uriah fell, struck down in the midst of the fight. 2 Samuel 11 verse 17 records. Uriah the Hittite died, and the servants of David carried him away and buried him. Joab's mind knew the truth. He was complicit. He had become the executor of the king's sin. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted. Joab, once a loyal soldier executing orders without question, now carried a secret that could influence the king the army, and the fate of Israel. He understood the weight of knowledge, the subtle power that comes from obedience coupled with awareness. He obeyed the king. But obedience had a price. But Joab would soon defy David openly. Absalom, David's son, was a prince of striking beauty and undeniable charm. But behind the allure lay ambition, and a thirst for justice that would soon turn to rebellion. The people of Israel watched as Absalom's charisma won hearts, his promises of fairness and change drawing whispers of loyalty away from the king. The stage was set for civil war. Israel, once united under David, now teetered on the edge of fratricide. David, still a father as well as a king, gave a command that echoed through his counselors and his army. 2 Samuel 18 verse 5. Deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom. The king's words were clear. No harm was to come to his son. But the battlefield is not a place of gentle words. The forest of Ephraim became a maze of trees, tangled roots, and chaos. The armies clashed. The cries of men and the clash of swords filled the air. Absalom, riding on his mule, became entangled in the thick branches of an oak tree. His long hair, a symbol of pride and vanity, betrayed him. He hung suspended, helpless between heaven and earth. 2 Samuel 18 verse 14 tells the grim moment. Joab took 3 javelins in his hand and thrust them into the heart of Absalom, while he was still alive in the oak. Joab, the man who had executed king's orders and punished traitors, arrived at the scene. He saw the young rebel, trapped and vulnerable. And Joab acted. 3 javelins, delivered with precision, ended the life of the prince. The soldiers finished the task. Absalom was dead. The rebellion extinguished in a single, merciless strike. When the news reached David, the king's grief was immeasurable. 2 Samuel 18 verse 33. And the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said, "O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you, O Absalom, my son, my son." The king mourned. The father's heart shattered. The king's command to deal gently had been ignored. And yet, Joab believed he had saved the kingdom. By striking decisively, he removed the threat, restored order, and secured David's reign. But the psychological fracture was real. Joab had disobeyed a direct order. He had crossed the line between loyalty and authority, and in doing so, revealed the dual nature of his power, protector of the king, and judge in his own right. This was the moment where loyalty and rebellion collided, where Joab's hand shaped history, yet fractured the bond between father and son, king and commander, obedience and conscience. With the dust of Absalom's rebellion still settling over Israel, the kingdom sought to heal, to restore order, and to prevent further bloodshed. King David, wary of Joab's growing independence and ruthless methods, made a bold move. He appointed Amasa, a capable commander who had once served Absalom, as the new leader of Israel's army. 2 Samuel 19 verse 13 records. And the king said, "Bring back the men, every man to his place, and let not Joab come with me in the host." Joab, whose hands had delivered judgment on Abner and Absalom alike, now faced a threat not from the enemy outside Israel, but from within, a man whose appointment could strip him of command and influence. He feigned peace. He smiled. He approached Amasa with the guise of friendship. And then, in a moment both shocking and deliberate, Joab struck. Grabbing Amasa by the beard, a symbol of honor and dignity, he plunged a sword into his abdomen. The man who might have replaced him, the man who could have risen to command Israel, fell lifeless to the ground. 2 Samuel 20 verses 8 to 10 recounts. Joab came to him in peace, to kiss him, and stabbed him in the stomach, and his bowels spilled to the ground. He did not die immediately, but died on the spot, and Joab and Abishai his brother pursued the captains of Israel. Now there was no doubt. Joab was untouchable in his ruthlessness. He had proven that loyalty, honor, and obedience were secondary to the preservation of his own power. Friends, allies, even the king's intentions could not stand in the way of Joab's ambitions. The army trembled. The people whispered. Every general, every soldier who might oppose him learned a bitter lesson. Joab would kill without hesitation, for revenge, for power, or for security. Yet, with every life he took, with every betrayal he executed, The threads of his own fate were being woven tighter. For the king may forgive a warrior, but history does not forget. The blade that protected him, the cunning that elevated him, would one day turn against him. But the final betrayal would seal his fate. Time had worn on King David. The once vigorous warrior who had slain Goliath, who had commanded armies and unified Israel, now walked with slower steps. The crown weighed heavily on his aged brow, and whispers of succession filled the palace halls. Among David's sons, two names emerged as contenders for the throne. Adonijah, eldest son, ambitious, charismatic, and willing to seize power before the king's final blessing. And Solomon, David's chosen heir, born to Bathsheba, groomed for wisdom, and destined to reign in God's favor. 1 Kings chapter 1 tells the story. Adonijah exalted himself, saying, "I will be king," and gathered chariots, horsemen, and 50 men to run before him. Joab, the commander who had once executed king's enemies and secured cities, now placed his bet. He aligned with Adonijah. It was a calculated choice, a political gamble, but a miscalculation. Joab, who had survived every battlefield, who had enforced loyalty with blood, believed Adonijah would continue the traditions of force and command he understood. He failed to account for Solomon's divine anointing and David's cunning final decisions. As Solomon's supporters moved, David acted decisively. The new king was crowned before all Israel, before priests, officials, and the people. Adonijah's claim collapsed like a house of sand. The older brother's allies fled. Joab, once untouchable, saw the tides turn. And David, the king who had tolerated Joab's ruthless independence for decades, now spoke with the authority of a dying father and a sovereign ruler. 1 Kings 2 verses 5-6. Do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace, but deal with him according to your wisdom, and strike him down, so that innocent blood shall not cling to me or to my descendants forever. The words were clear, chilling. The warrior who had survived every battlefield, who had dictated life and death for Israel's enemies and friends alike, was now hunted. The man who commanded armies, who killed without remorse, now faced a fate no sword could defend him from. Joab, Israel's fiercest warrior, the man whose sword had decided the fate of kings, now ran. Not from armies of enemies, not from the tribes of Israel, but from the son of the king he had served faithfully and ruthlessly. 1 Kings 2 verses 28-34 tells the moment. Joab fled to the tabernacle and took hold of the horns of the altar. Inside the sacred place, Joab clutched the cold, carved horns, symbols of mercy, sanctuary, and divine protection. He prayed silently, perhaps hoping that the same hands he had spilled blood with would now spare him. Outside, the air was heavy. The palace had sent a man to carry out judgment. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a commander of integrity, chosen by Solomon to execute the king's final orders. He approached with measured steps. "Get out of there!" Joab did not budge. The altar was his final refuge. The sanctuary, the one place where bloodshed was forbidden, became the stage for the last act of his life. But mercy could not save him. Solomon's command was absolute. Benaiah struck with precision. Joab fell where he clung, the altar, the supposed sanctuary, now stained with the blood of the man who had spilled so much of others. The symbolism was unmistakable. A warrior who had ruled by the sword met death in the very place meant for protection, in the place meant to signify God's mercy. Blood that had once flowed on battlefields now lay upon holy ground. In life, when we serve under the leadership of men, we can easily find ourselves acting contrary to God's commands. We obey human authority blindly, pursuing orders or ambitions, without pausing to consider God's will, the consequences of our choices, or the long-term impact on our lives. Joab's story is a warning. Even great strength, skill, and loyalty cannot protect us when obedience to men overrides obedience to God. The dust settled. The sword was sheathed. And the altar, a place meant for mercy, bore witness to the consequences of a life guided by ambition and human loyalties rather than God's justice. In the end, his life delivers a timeless lesson. Joab won Israel's wars. But he never learned to surrender. Pause and reflect on the choices we make under authority, and consider whether obedience honors God, or just human ambition. If this story moved you, subscribe for more biblical character and share it with someone who would learn from the triumphs and failures of Scripture.